So today's video is something that's very close to my heart. It's a profound idea that's had like an emotional repercussion on me. Not to make it sound too intense, but I think it's an idea that's really profound and it's touched me, and I hope it's resourceful to some of you guys, because that's the goal with all these videos, to make them somewhat resourceful. Really, it's me just sharing what I think with the hopes that someone finds it useful. But yeah, this one's been really useful for me. So let's see. I'm gonna start by reading a little excerpt out of my diary. My value as a person is not associated with my mastery of skills. My value is a product of who I am. My truth and my ability to follow the truth is what defines my value. I think growing up for me, I was a really lucky kid, and I am. But as I was growing up, I was surrounded by a lot of love, an inexorbitant, unfair amount of love, and opportunity. When I got into high school, I was a really high achieving kid, and I was surrounded by these great friends and even better teachers and mentors, and opportunities would come to me abound. And during that time, when I was in high school, I was riding high on the wave. Everything I touched would turn to gold for me, and I couldn't understand why, but I didn't complain. And when I got out of high school, I went to university. And at university, what happened was, multiple things happened in my life when I went into my first year of university that were all challenging, But one thing that happened was, all of a sudden, all this love and high achievement that I felt seemed to just disappear all of a sudden. And I don't think it was because anyone did it. It was just because that's what life was. I moved to a new province. I was at a new school, and everyone who came to that school was the top of their school. So what ended up happening is I went from the top of my class, valedictorian, 28 awards coming out of high school, to middle of the class, and not the best. Good, not the best. Average. And there weren't a lot of awards, and I made great friends, but I wasn't a leader of any sort. And that, coupled with a lot of, personal difficulties I went through, like, I lost my grandfather, I started failing academically, and I'd never failed, Those things kind of combined, and what happened was, I was in this place for the first time in my life where I felt like a failure. And it was a really, really tough time. And it took its toll on me. And I look back on that time now, and I think the reason it was so difficult for me is because I assigned my value as a person to my mastery of skills. I thought that I was a valuable person, and that I had a right to be happy and, proud of myself, because of the things I could do. Coming out of high school, I could do so much, right? I was very good academically, I was very good socially, I had all these things, and I started to believe, without realizing it, that it was the individual acts of skill and mastery that were the reason I was so loved and useful. And when that paradigm fell away, and I was put in a challenging situation where I didn't have those things, I went through a tough time because I felt less valuable. And I went through a really interesting period of, for the first time in my life, doubting myself and getting down on myself. And it was tough. And it was kind of like a dark time. And these past, 6 months, I've been really delving into what kind of happened during that period in my life, and more I've been delving into, the future and what I think. But as I was sitting there one day and I was writing, that line came up, and it really touched me, because what I felt is, I think that is one of the most dangerous yet common ideas out there. That the value of us as people is associated with the things we can do and not who we are or our character. And I've talked about in the last video, I think, the idea that there's a difference between knowing something and understanding something. There's a difference between when you try to possess an idea and when an idea possesses you, and that's when you really understand it. And I think this is another one of those cases where I feel like the idea has possessed me. See, until I could take a step back and look at my self-value not as a product of my skills, but as a product of my ability to listen to my heart and follow it, I went through a really hard time. And the reason I think the right thing to value yourself on is your ability to follow your heart is because that is the only thing in life that is unique to you. I do believe that God puts us on earth for very specific reasons, that we are meant to do what we are meant to do. But if you start to believe that your value is linked to what you can do and not what you were meant to do, you get into this really hard place where you can't win and you will always be disappointed. And it's not a defeatist approach. If anything, it's both liberating and invigorating. Because it's not to say that if there's things you suck at that you should be okay with sucking on them. Sucking at them. Ha. But what it is that it's that doesn't mean, that's not equivalent to what your actual worth is. I truly believe that my worth is my ability to listen to what I believe to be true, the things that my soul and my heart tells me to pursue and try, and whether or not I have the courage to listen to those things. That's where I think true value comes from, and has for me at least. Because it takes courage to listen to your heart. Absolutely. It's hard, it's scary, especially when you think you're one person but your heart tells you something else. But the capability to follow through on the deepest desires of your soul, that's what I think true value is associated with. Because until I understood this idea, I was suffering from the fact that, oh, he's doing this, she's doing that. I didn't have my own metric for success, so I was trying to define my success against other people, and I was consistently failing because their journeys weren't mine. Right? And it sounds poetic, but I really, really don't think it is. I think it's very pragmatic. That each, I heard something from a psychologist. He said that, by the time you're 30, you literally can't compare yourself to others because the idiosyncrasies of your own life are too complex. The responsibilities of your life by the time you're 30, he said, the conditions of your life are so unique to you that you can't judge yourself against others. You have very unique responsibilities and needs and all that stuff. But I think that's true even now when we're 20, when I'm 20. Yes, there's definitely more overlap, but the thing is, what I believe, the things that interest me, my passions, I can't squelch those in order to follow through on someone else's metric of success. Because that's when I say I have less value. That's when I say that's, I think, a fair metric for me to look at myself at and be like, I'm not where I want to be. Because it's not about the physical things I'm capable of, the skills. It's about whether I have the courage to listen to myself. And the reason I think that's a good metric to use to judge myself against is because I can change it. I can change it earnestly. Yes, if you don't have certain skills, you can learn those skills. But no one cares. You don't even care about the skills. I don't care about the skills. Unless the skills are helping push me towards my truth, my passions, my interests. Right? So, here's a great example. I'm in engineering, and so for me, there was a point where, everyone was really big into coding and stuff, and I was like, I hate coding. I hate it. I don't enjoy it at all. And I started thinking that, oh, dude, I gotta get really good at coding, because my value is equivalated to my ability to code. It's the skill I have. But coding didn't push me towards my passions or my interests. And when I finally started to have the courage to pursue my interests, then all of a sudden I felt valuable. Because then when coding actually became part of that, it wasn't something I hated. Because it wasn't about the skill, it was about where the skill was leading me. It was about the fact that I had the courage to try and fail at something I cared about. You know, and I really don't like the whole idea of, like, you know, blaming society and culture for all the, you know, for things that are wrong in our life. But that doesn't mean that there's not fair criticisms of it. And I think the idea of skill-based value is relevant in, like, you know, the workplace and stuff. That's how we value each other. You know, can you do this, can you not? And that's fine. Right? That's how it should work. But that's not how it works on a spiritual, self-identifying level. And it's a bad way to go about it. Because you start to replace, instead of dealing with the problems and the insufficiencies and the fears we have, we try and fill them, we try to fill that circle-shaped void with a bunch of squares of skills and just stuff it out. It's not your skills that make you valuable, man. And you know what the thing is, dude? It's such a terrible, terrible mindset. Because it hurts so much. It hurts because you always feel insufficient because of things you think you can and can't do. When the reality is you can do whatever you want. I can learn to code. I'm a smart guy. Anyone can learn to code. It's not about that. It's about, maybe if you don't care about coding, you need to stop, take a step back and realize that you don't care about that field. Your heart doesn't beckon you towards it. And that's okay. That's okay. Like, that's the thing. The fact that it's okay to be who you are. And I hate how, like, like, poetic that sounds, because, you know, I mean it pragmatically. Like, there's a soul inside of us, and it speaks forth truth, and it speaks forth the light that we have to share with the world, man. Like, I truly believe that the world would be dimmer without my light. Without anyone's light. Like, we're put on this earth because we have such a specific color to our flame. And the saddest thing is when we try and color ourselves into the the same color flame as others, because we think that's the way it should be, and it's not. And I'm learning that as I'm getting older and trying to figure out life and contending with what it means to grow up and try and turn into a good man from a boy. It's that the most paramount objective in life is the full realization of myself. It's to fully explore those things which I care about. And I don't know what I care about all the time, but you know how I can find out? By pursuing the things I do know I care about. And I just wish more people knew that. I wish more people did that. Instead of just saying, like, yeah, no, I understand that idea. It's like, no, dude. It's not about understanding. It's about having the courage, having the balls to make that decision. Like, dude, if you hate your degree, change it. Drop out, man. Do something. Move towards the direction you want. Hell, you don't want to drop out of your degree. Start doing things side by side that at least feed your soul. So when you're done, you can keep doing those things. The courage. The courage to follow your heart. Trust me, I get it, how scary it is. But, like, you have to. Because it's not worth it. Otherwise you just try and value yourself based on your skills. And you're more than a cog in, the capitalist machine. Like, you have a soul, you have a heart. And I promise you, you will achieve so much more in your life if you follow through on the things that you believe to be true in your heart. Now, think about the people we reward the most in society. Actors, singers, Elon Musk sucks. Like the billionaires of the world aren't people who, and this isn't even like a plug for entrepreneurship. I mean, they're not people who did what other people did. They did what they believed to be worth doing and true. Singers bring forth the truth of their hearts. Actors, artists, engineers who, like Elon Musk, he did what he believed to be right and true and useful. Ralph Waldo Emerson says in one of, the most important works of his writing, I think, Self-Reliance, he says, to believe, and I might mess this up, but he says, to believe what is true in your own heart is the truth of all humanity, that is called genius. And I believe that so deeply. Because if it's true in your heart, why not believe it's true for all people? I hate when people say, how dare you, who are you to say? I'm me. And I know what's true for me. So why not share that? Why not explore that? What else am I gonna do? What's the point of living a life? Excuse me, that's not my own. It's been a really profound idea for me. One that's really changed my perception of myself. One that's and when I realized it, it gave me the courage to stop and pursue what I believed in. And, the way it manifested itself for me is I ended up taking 4 months off of university and taking that risk, terrified of it, and pursuing the things that I loved and believed in. And, maybe I'll make a video about what these past 4 months have been like, but let me say they have been the best 4 months of my life. Period. 20 years, man. Promise. Best 4 months of my life. Yeah. So, to recap, your value, my value, your value, is not associated with the skills, your ability to do things. It's, if anything, if there's a metric you're going to use to judge yourself, measure yourself against whether or not you are following your heart, speaking the truth as you believe it. Don't say things just because it's the common thing to say. If someone says something that you don't agree with, you don't have to say yes. And you'll suffer if you say yes, man. Trust. I know that. You will suffer. Because I did. And I think, the more people I look and read and admire and look up to, and when I listen to them, they say the same thing. They're like, you suffer when you don't speak the truth of your heart, because what ends up happening is you take the light that you are meant to share with the world and you dim it. And then you become resentful. And when you become resentful, you try and do that to other people. Imagine what the world would be like if, instead of trying to dim each other's lights, we all just focused. I'm not even saying supported each other. I'm saying focused on our own. In the period of my life, in these past 2 years where I felt really dark, that's what I did. I tried to dim the people whose lights I love most. And it hurt them and it hurt me more because you don't want to be that person. And the point is that you're not your skills. You are your ability to follow your heart. And if you suck at that, trust me, because I suck at it, dude, start small. You can change that. And it's a beautiful, beautiful gift that you can. Done.